Good morning. It is Thursday, February 26th, 2026. If you are waking up right now, maybe grabbing your coffee and checking the NBA scores from last night on your phone, you might be experiencing a mild sense of vertigo.
Oh, absolutely.
You might be looking at the screen and asking yourself, did the Golden State Warriors really score 133 points with a lineup that sounds like a randomly generated draft class? Or did the Boston Celtics really only score 84 points in an actual NBA game in the year 2026?
I can assure you it wasn't a fever dream. It actually happened. All of it.
It did happen, and frankly, if you looked at the injury report yesterday afternoon, Wednesday the 25th, you probably thought about skipping the slate entirely. It looked like the red wedding of the NBA season.
It really did.
You had superstars resting, you had playoff teams totally punting games for seeding purposes, and you had what I like to call hospital lineups just running wild across the league. But as we always say on this show, chaos is a ladder. And in that chaos, we found some of the most instructive basketball of the entire season.
Instructive is the exact perfect word for it. Because when you strip away the superstars, when you take Steph Curry, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Donovan Mitchell entirely off the floor, you stop watching pure talent and you start watching systems.
Right.
You see the actual skeleton of the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And what we saw last night, specifically from Golden State and Oklahoma City, told us everything we need to know about who is actually ready for April and May.
Exactly. We are going to cut through all that noise today. We are going to completely ignore the load management discourse and focus on the basketball reality. We have a massive deep dive for you today.
Let's get into it.
We are breaking down the clash of titans in Denver that turned into an absolute defensive suffocating. We are going to talk about the night of the zombies, where depleted rosters in Detroit and Memphis told two very different stories. And we absolutely have to talk about the San Antonio Spurs.
Oh, man, the Spurs.
They are quietly becoming the team that nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to see in a 7-game series.
The Spurs are the biggest story in the league that just isn't getting the national headlines right now. But we are definitely going to change that today.
We certainly will. So let's fly out to the Rockies. Ball Arena, Denver, Colorado. This was the game, the one everyone had circled on the calendar for weeks. The Boston Celtics versus the Denver Nuggets.
The heavyweights.
You have the Celtics coming in at 38-20, finishing up a Western Conference road trip where they had gone 3-1. They looked really solid. Then you have Denver at 37-22, coming off a shaky 1-2 road trip, just desperately trying to defend their home court. The narrative everywhere was that this is a finals preview.
It definitely felt like a finals preview in the building, just the atmosphere, absolutely. But the actual result, the result was something else entirely.
Yeah.
Denver 103, Boston 84.
84 points. I really want to pause on that number for a second. In the modern NBA, where the league average offensive rating is hovering around 118, holding the Boston Celtics, arguably the most talented offensive roster in history, to 84 points it feels like a typo.
It does feel like a typo, but it wasn't a fluke. That's the most important distinction here.
Yeah.
Sometimes a team just misses open shots, and you write it off. This wasn't that. This was Denver structurally dismantling Boston's offense, piece by piece. And the most shocking part of the whole thing, they did it without their primary perimeter closer.
Jamal Murray.
Right. Jamal Murray starts the game. He plays exactly 7 minutes. He clearly doesn't look right out there. He goes to the locker room with an illness and just doesn't return.
Which is usually a death knell for them.
Historically, yes. When Jamal Murray leaves the game, the Nuggets' offense usually collapses, and their defense loses its edge because the emotional leader is gone.
It usually feels like all the air just goes completely out of the building.
Precisely. But last night, the exact opposite happened. The moment Murray went out, the Nuggets' defense tightened up. It got nastier. It got significantly more physical. And I think we have to give a massive amount of credit to the return of a specific player who completely changes their defensive geometry.
The Cowboy. Bruce Brown is back in town.
Bruce Brown being back on this roster changes the math for the entire Western Conference. We really cannot overstate this. We saw it in the second quarter specifically.
Walk us through that.
So there was a possession where Jaylen Brown, who was back from that knee contusion, by the way, tried to turn the corner on a standard pick and roll. Now, for the last 3 months, without Bruce Brown on the floor, that play resulted in a blow-by, a collapsed defense, and an open corner 3 for Boston.
Right, because usually Christian Braun is trying to fight over the screen, or Porter Jr. is late on the help side rotation.
Exactly. But last night, Bruce Brown fights over the screen. He beats Jaylen to the spot. He walls him off with his chest. No hands, just all chest, and forces a desperate kick out that gets deflected.
I remember that play.
That right there is the championship DNA we always talk about. Harrison Wind, who covers the team locally, tweeted during the game that it looked like the Nuggets finally cared about getting stops. And that is the intangible lift Bruce Brown brings to the table. He makes everyone else accountable.
It's the connectivity. You see Jokic trust him completely. There was a play on offense where Brown cut baseline and Jokic hit him without even looking. It's like they share a brain. But speaking of Jokic, we really have to unpack his stat line from last night.
We do, because it's fascinating.
If you just look at the fantasy score in your app, it looks dominant. 30 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, standard MVP stuff. But I was watching you watch the game. You were grimacing for most of the first half.
Because it was ugly. It was an incredibly ugly, grinded-out performance early on. Jokic shot 11 of 28 from the field. He was 4 of 13 from 3.
11 of 28. That is not the Nikola Jokic efficiency we have come to expect at all. That sounds more like a volume scorer from the 90s trying to shoot his way out of a slump.
It really was strange to watch. He was missing shots he makes in his sleep. The little sophomore shuffles off the wrong foot. Clank. The soft hook shots in the lane. Rimmed out. And you have to give some credit to Nimi Esqueda for Boston. He battled hard. He was physical. He tried to push Jokic off his spots all night. But here is the real insight I want you listening to grasp. The difference between a star and an all-time great is what happens when the mechanics fail.
When the touch just isn't there.
Exactly. Most stars, if they start 3 for 10, they get passive. They stop shooting entirely. Or they get frustrated and start forcing really bad passes into traffic. Jokic. He realized early on, okay, the ball isn't going in the hole the way I like tonight. My touch is off. So I am just going to become inevitable.
I love that. Inevitable.
He stopped settling for the finesse shots and started just bludgeoning them down low. He crashed the offensive glass relentlessly. He set much harder screens. Despite shooting poorly, he was a plus 13 in 32 minutes of action.
That's insane.
He controlled the tempo of the game even when he couldn't control the slide of the ball. And then the third quarter happened.
The 11-0 run, that was the absolute dagger.
That was the entire game right there. Boston had finally cut the lead to single digits. The crowd at Ball Arena was getting a little nervous. You could feel the tension building up. And Jokic just orchestrated 3 straight possessions of absolute perfection.
Break those down.
First, a cross-court kick-out for a wide-open corner 3. Then, a bully ball layup where he just moved Quita under the rim like he was a piece of living room furniture. And finally, that full-court outlet pass to a streaking Braun.
It felt like he just decided, we aren't losing this game, period. And doing it without Murray. That is the major data point I'm filing away for later, because the narrative all year from the national critics has been that Denver is too thin, that Denver relies way too much on the two-man game.
Right.
Well, they just blew out the Celtics by 19 points with essentially a one-man game and a swarm of highly aggressive defenders.
It creates a terrifying blueprint for the rest of the league. If Denver can win games defensively like this, holding elite teams under 90 points, they become a nightmare matchup in May. Because you can't rely on simply outscoring them anymore.
Let's flip the lens to the visitors really quick. The Boston Celtics. 84 points. 34.9% shooting from the field. 27.9% from 3.
Just disastrous numbers across the board.
Is this just the classic altitude schedule loss? We know the air is thin in Denver. It was the very end of a road trip. Legs are heavy. Or did you see something structural that genuinely worries you about Boston moving forward?
It's a bit of both. But I honestly lean more toward the structural concern in this specific matchup. Yes, Joe Mazzulla waved the white flag early in the fourth quarter. He pulled the starters, which is basically admitting, look, we don't have the legs to chase these guys around screens anymore tonight.
Which is fair.
That's totally fair. But the lack of depth production is highly alarming.
The bench was just non-existent.
Completely hollow. Derek White was fantastic. He had 20 points. He's a Colorado native, so maybe the altitude just doesn't bother him as much. But Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, they gave them absolutely nothing. And when the bench isn't scoring at all, it puts immense pressure on Jaylen Brown to create everything.
And Jaylen looked, active, but certainly not efficient.
He was 7 of 21 from the floor. He was trying to force the issue time and time again because nobody else was creating any advantages out there. He looked active coming off that knee contusion, sure, but he didn't look explosive.
Yeah, that burst wasn't there.
Not at all. Against a defense that is swarming the way Denver's was, if you can't turn the corner and get 2 feet in the paint, you end up settling for heavily contested jumpers. That's exactly why they shot 27% from 3. They weren't generating open looks. They were taking bailout looks late in the clock.
So, big picture impact here. Denver moves to 37-22. They are now mere percentage points behind Houston for that number 3 seed, desperately trying to escape the play-in mess entirely. Boston drops to 38-20. They are safe at the number 2 spot in the East for now, but they are now 5.5 games back of Detroit.
Which is a very significant gap at this stage of the season.
It is a massive gap. And honestly, if you are Boston, do you just burn the tape on this one?
You burn the tape on the shooting splits, sure. You cannot expect your guys to shoot 34% every single night, but you absolutely keep the tape on the defense. You have to study exactly how Bruce Brown blew up those primary actions, because if you see Denver in the finals, you have to have a reliable counter to that level of physicality.
Speaking of physicality and speaking of absolute dismantling, let's move down south to Texas, because the Houston Rockets didn't just win a basketball game last night. They committed a felony against the Sacramento Kings.
It really was a crime scene out there. Houston 128, Sacramento 97.
A 31-point drubbing. And looking at the Kings right now, they are sitting at 13-46.
It is over. It has been over for months, really, but now it is just sad to watch. The spirit is completely broken in Sacramento.
But let's focus on the winners here, because the Rockets are 36-21. They are completely legitimate. And the headline, once again, is Alperen Sengun.
Sengun dominates. It's becoming the recurring theme of the late winter schedule. He had a massive triple-double last night. But what stood out to me wasn't just the counting stats. It was the absolute control he exerted over the entire game.
How so?
Well, early in his career, Sengun was flashy. He was throwing these wild, behind-the-back passes that sometimes ended up in the third row. It was very high risk, high reward.
It was incredibly fun for League Pass, but chaotic.
Exactly. Now, it is surgical. He is dissecting defenses with precision. He is the absolute hub of everything they do on the offensive end. He recognizes the double-team rotations before they even arrive. And he has a new running mate who is just lighting the world on fire right now, Reed Sheppard.
We have to talk about the rookie. We really do.
Because the draft knock on Sheppard all summer was, is he too small? Is he just a spot-up shooter who won't be able to create at the NBA level?
He had 28 points last night. And he definitely wasn't just standing in the corner waiting for Sengun to pass it to him.
No. He was actively creating his own offense. He was hitting pull-up mid-range jumpers off the bounce. He was using these crafty floats in the lane over bigger defenders. He is scoring at high volume. And this changes Houston's overall ceiling dramatically.
Because of the secondary creation.
Right. For the last 2 years, the question with Houston was always, who creates when the primary set breaks down? Jalen Green was too inconsistent. Fred VanVleet is steady, but he's aging. Sheppard gives them a highly dynamic secondary creator who fits perfectly next to Amen Thompson.
That fit is so crucial because Amen brings the relentless rim pressure, the athletic terror on defense, the transition dunks, and then Sheppard brings the floor spacing, the elite shooting, and the half-court craft. It feels like the puzzle pieces in Houston have actually finally clicked into place.
They aren't just a fun young story anymore. They are a legitimate contender. They are hunting a top 3 seed in the West right now. They are looking directly at Denver and saying, we are coming for that spot.
Meanwhile, on the Sacramento side of things, we do have to mention Russell Westbrook.
We do.
He led them with 22 points. He came off the bench. Well, he started some games earlier, but he is in that hybrid role now. And he was basically the only guy in a Kings uniform with a pulse last night.
Russ is always going to try. I will never slander Russell Westbrook's baseline effort. He plays incredibly hard every single second he is on the floor. But watching him try to drag this specific Kings roster to respectability is like watching someone try to bail out the Titanic with a solo cup.
That is a bleak image.
It's noble, but it's entirely futile. That roster needs a complete top-to-bottom reset in the offseason.
Okay, so Houston is surging in the West. But the team they all chasing in the East, and honestly the team everyone is chasing in the entire league, is the Detroit Pistons.
Say it again. It just sounds so wild to say out loud.
The Detroit Pistons, 43-14, best record in the NBA.
It is February 26th, and the Pistons have 43 wins.
And they beat the Oklahoma City Thunder last night, 124-160. Now, I see you raising your eyebrow. I know exactly what you listening at home are going to say. You're going to say, that wasn't the real Thunder team.
It definitely wasn't the Thunder. It was the zombie Thunder. Let's be completely honest about who actually suited up for OKC last night. Let's read the inactive list just for posterity.
Let's hear it.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, out. Chet Holmgren, out. Jalen Williams, J-Dub, out. Isaiah Hartenstein, out. Alex Caruso, out.
That is literally the entire starting 5 and the primary 6th man.
It is the entire core rotation. Mark Daigneault Basically looked at the schedule, saw Detroit on a random Wednesday in February, and said, take the night off, boys. We are punting this one.
And yet, the Zombie Thunder still scored 116 points against the best defense in the Eastern Conference.
That is the truly terrifying part about OKC. The system works completely independent of the personnel. This is the ultimate plug-and-play philosophy in action.
Yeah.
But on the Thunder jersey, you play a very specific way. You cut, you move the ball, you drive, you kick. Even the third stringers, guys who play in the G League most of the year, know the system by absolute heart.
And we really have to shout out the other J-Dub, Jalen Williams, the big man.
Absolute career night. Jalen Williams drops 30 points. This is a guy primarily known for taking charges and making nice outlet passes. He is not a primary bucket getter.
Not at all.
But that is the beauty of the NBA regular season. When there is a massive vacuum of usage, when Shai isn't taking his usual 20 shots, someone has to shoot the basketball. He stepped into that void and looked like an all-star.
But Detroit didn't panic. And I think that is the real maturity we're seeing from this Pistons group. In past years, or even earlier this season maybe, this is a classic trap game.
Oh, 100%.
They see the injury report, they relax, they think it's going to be an easy blowout, and they end up losing.
Instead, Jalen Duren had just decided he was going to be the biggest, strongest person in the building from tip-off.
Duren was a complete monster, 29 points.
He punished them down low. He looked at that depleted Thunder front court, no Chet, no Hartenstein, and basically said, you physically cannot stop me. He went 10 of 13 from the field. He sealed deep in the paint. He dunked absolutely everything. He lived at the free throw line. It was bully ball 101.
And Cade Cunningham, just such a steady hand at the wheel.
Cade is the CEO of this team. He didn't have to go out and score 40 points to prove a point. He had his points, sure, and he actually hit a nice milestone, his 500th career three-pointer, which is great. But it was his absolute control of the game flow.
3 steals on the defensive end, too.
Right. He managed the tempo perfectly. When OKC made a run, and they did make a few pushes, Cade calmed everyone down and got them into their sets.
And please don't overlook Oscar Thompson. 6 assists for him last night.
That is the true X factor for their playoff run. We know Oscar defends at an elite level. We know he is an otherworldly athlete. But if he is consistently facilitating...
He's making those reads.
Exactly. If he is making reads on the short roll and finding open shooters in the corner, that unlocks a completely new level for Detroit's half-court offense. It makes them nearly impossible to guard because you can't just ignore him on the perimeter if he is cutting and passing like a point forward.
So Detroit handles their business. They stay atop the East. But looking at the Western Conference standings, there is a shadow looming over everyone right now. The San Antonio Spurs.
They are the quietest 42-16 team I think I have ever seen in my life.
They beat Toronto 110-107, a really close one, maybe a little too close.
Maybe a little too close for comfort given the opponent, but you have to look at how they won the game. Look at the closing minutes. Victor Wembanyama,
the alien.
He averages 24.3 points per game. We know he can score the ball from anywhere. But I really want to focus on the last 10 seconds of this specific game. Toronto has the ball. They're down by 3. Brandon Ingram, who, by the way, has been carrying a massive load for Toronto since they waived Chris Paul, playing this point-forward role.
Right.
So Ingram has a look at a potential tying 3.
And Wembanyama is just everywhere all at once.
He stunts at the shooter on the perimeter, recovers back to the paint to cut off the driving lane, disrupts the passing angle, and then reaches up and rips down the game-sealing defensive rebound in heavy traffic with exactly 3.1 seconds left.
It feels like he just decides, okay, the game is over now. Time to go home.
He literally closes the door.
Yeah.
And that right there is what separates good regular season teams from great playoff teams. San Antonio didn't play their best game overall. Toronto fought really hard. Scotty Barnes was good. Ingram was hitting some incredibly tough shots.
Yeah, they made them work for it.
But when it mattered most, the Spurs had the ultimate trump card on the floor. They are now second in the West, just 2 games back of OKC.
That is way ahead of schedule. We all thought they were at least a full year away from this kind of positioning.
We were entirely wrong. They are here right now, and they are absolutely terrifying for the rest of the conference.
So we have the dominant systems, we have the rising superstars, but I really want to shift to our third segment here, because we talked about hospital lineups with OKC. But what happened in Memphis last night, that was something else entirely. The Golden State Warriors.
Oh boy, the Warriors.
Let's do the roll call for everyone listening, just so we completely understand the context of what happened. Steph Curry, sitting out. Draymond Green, resting. Kristaps Porzingis, out. Jimmy Butler.
Also out.
And yes, for any casual fans out there who maybe just tuned back into basketball after football season, check your verified rosters. Jimmy Butler is currently on the Golden State Warriors. It happened. It's real life.
Still weird to see, but true.
So you have 4 Hall of Fame level or borderline Hall of Fame level talent sitting out. You go on the road into Memphis and you score 133 points.
133 points in a regulation game.
How? Just how does that happen?
Steve Kerr. That's how it happens. And it's the deep institutional memory of the franchise. It's the next man up culture, sure, but fundamentally, it's the offensive system itself. The Warriors' motion offense is specifically designed to generate open shots regardless of the actual names on the back of the jerseys, as long as the guys out there cut hard, screen hard, and willingly share the ball.
But the players still have to actually make the shots. And we have to shout out the heroes of the night. Names that, let's be totally honest, some of our listeners might not even know. Will Richard.
Will Richard. I fully admit I had to double-check my own notes when he checked into the game.
Same here.
An undrafted, two-way contract type of guy. He goes out and plays 30 minutes. He drops 21 points on highly efficient 9 of 15 shooting.
And he wasn't just standing in the corner waiting for kickouts.
Not at all. He was constantly cutting backdoor. He was finishing through contact in transition. He had 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals. He completely filled up the stat sheet. He played like a 10-year veteran who knew exactly where to be on every single possession.
And then you have Brandon Podziemski.
Podziemski. He was the absolute captain of the ship last night. With Steph and Draymond out, he essentially became the lead guard and the emotional engine. 19 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists.
Just a great all-around line.
He organized everyone. He was pointing, telling people where to go on the floor. And then Gary Payton II chipped in 19 points off the bench, being that usual chaos.
This game really is the perfect distilled example of system versus stars. The Warriors proved that their system is functionally bulletproof. If you have professional basketball players who fully buy into the movement, they will score points. But I have to ask, does this say more about Golden State's incredible system, or does it say something deeply alarming about the Memphis Grizzlies defense?
It says a whole lot about Memphis, and literally none of it is good. Look, no Ja Morant for them. We know that hurts their offensive rhythm in their transition game. But you gave up 133 points to Will Richard and Brandon Podziemski.
On your home floor.
Right. G.G. Jackson scored 24 points for Memphis. Sure, he got his buckets on the offensive end. But defensively, they were completely lost in the woods.
It looked like a pregame layup line out there sometimes.
They were getting back cut to death. Over and over. They couldn't stay in front of the ball at the point of attack. They were getting consistently beat in transition after made baskets. That is a pure discipline issue. And for a team that really wants to be taken seriously in the West, you cannot get run out of your own gym by the Warriors B team. You just can't allow that to happen.
Let's look at the other side of the coaching impact coin. The Milwaukee Bucks. They played the Cleveland Cavaliers last night. And the Bucks are sitting at 25-31. They are essentially fighting for their playoff lives right now.
It is full-blown desperation mode in Milwaukee. They desperately needed this win, and frankly, Cleveland kind of handed it to them on a silver platter.
Yeah, let's look at the Cavs roster for this specific matchup. Kenny Atkinson decided to totally punt. No Donovan Mitchell, no Evan Mobley, and no James Harden.
Right. Harden, who is on the Cavs now, rested. So Cleveland sends out their B team to face a desperate Buck squad. And the Bucks, they barely won.
They really scraped by 118-116.
And that is the massive concern if you were following Milwaukee. They had their guys out there. Giannis Antetokounmpo played. Miles Turner, who is on the Bucks, played his normal minutes.
How did Turner look next to Giannis in this one?
He was okay. He spaces the floor, which inherently helps Giannis find driving lanes. But defensively, Jared Allen absolutely feasted on the inside. Allen had 27 points and 11 rebounds for Cleveland. He was the best big man on the floor for long stretches of the game, and that is really saying something when Giannis is out there.
Kevin Porter Jr. had a really big game for Milwaukee, though, we should mention.
He did. 20 points. He provided that perimeter offensive spark they so desperately need when their half-court offense bogs down into isolation-heavy sets.
Yeah.
But if you are a Bucks fan waking up today, are you relieved you got the win? Yes, obviously. But are you terrified that it took a genuine nail-biter to beat the Cavs without their 3 best offensive players? Absolutely. You have to be.
It feels like Milwaukee is just treading water, trying to keep their head above the surface until the play-in tournament starts.
And looking at the broader standings post-game, that is exactly where they find themselves. In the East right now, Detroit is just running away with the #1 seed. Boston is relatively safe at 2, but they are sliding a bit with these weird offensive performances.
Right.
The Knicks and Cavs are in a brutal dogfight for the 3 and 4 spots. Milwaukee is just trying to stay in the mix at the bottom of the bracket.
And what about out west?
It is clearly separated into tiers now. OKC and San Antonio are the undisputed elite tier. Then you have this really fascinating middle ground. Houston and Denver are pushing incredibly hard to escape the play-in entirely. Those wins last night, Houston completely crushing Sacramento and Denver structurally beating Boston, those were massive for seeding leverage.
So tying all this together, what does this all mean as we head into March? The real dog days of the NBA season are technically behind us, but we are still seeing these very weird rest nights and unpredictable results.
I think the single biggest takeaway from last night is the sheer value of depth. The teams that can survive a random Wednesday night where their primary stars sit out, like Golden State did or like Detroit did against a trapping OKC defensive scheme.
Those are the resilient ones.
Exactly. Those are the teams built for deep playoff runs. And conversely, seeing Boston look so incredibly flat and out of sync without their usual rhythm, it is a stark reminder that even the absolute giants in this league have exploitable weaknesses.
And the Spurs, I just keep coming back to them in my head.
You really have to. 42-16 is very real. Wembanyama isn't just a fun highlight reel of crazy dunks anymore. He is actively closing tight games with crucial rebounding and elite defensive positioning. He is consistently winning the margins. That is pure championship behavior from a very young team.
Here is a provocative thought for you to chew on, and for everyone listening at home as you finish your morning coffee. We watched Denver completely dismantle Boston without Jamal Murray. We watched Golden State score 133 points without any of their 4 major stars. In 2026, is the actual system finally becoming more valuable than raw star power during the regular season?
That really is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The overall floor of talent has been raised so high in this league that if your offensive and defensive systems are perfectly sound, you can honestly beat anyone on any given night with role players.
Right.
But in the playoffs, I still firmly believe you need the guy who can get you a highly contested bucket when the play breaks down and the shot clock is at 4 seconds. But just for getting through the grueling 82-game regular season grind, give me a resilient system like Golden State's or OKC's any day of the week.
It was a truly fascinating night of hoops. Make sure you all deeply check the verified injury reports for tomorrow's slate before you set your daily fantasy lineups or make any predictions, because as we clearly saw last night, you truly never know who is going to be sitting on the bench in street clothes.
Absolutely. You really don't want to get caught off guard with those hospital lineups.
That is going to do it for us on this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.
Keep watching the ball.